So for the past couple months, I've been spending time rafting and kayaking, making new friends and running new rapids. As all of you are probably thinking right now, it was extremely difficult. In all seriousness, I still cannot believe how lucky I am to have done this project, and the long days of work were always worth it. I'm so happy with how it all came together, but as I said, I have always been obsessed with rivers. Those long days, these new friends and new memories, and the topic of my iTry had truly been a long time coming. From a very young age, I felt drawn to rivers. As a kid, I was fascinated by water, and I spent as much time as I could on the banks of the Big Wood. Then, when I was 8, my family bought a rafting company, which meant I started spending my summers in the small town of Sunbeam, Idaho. It didn't take long for me to get into kayaking, which opened the door for me to see some of Idaho's coolest places. I started with the Upper Salmon, my home river, and soon branched out to the Yankee Fork, the Main Salmon, and the South and Upper North Forks of the Payette. Kayaking allowed me to explore new places and to feel completely free, and so I let it take me around my home state, show me my own limits, and bring me closer to myself. Considering how much time I spent on rivers, when it came time to decide what to do for iTry, I didn't have to look too far. These past few months, I've been exploring how rivers connect built and natural environments, and how whitewater builds community. As you may imagine, I've been lucky enough to be part of an amazing community that was built around the river, and so my idea for what I wanted to explore was born out of reflection. However, I believe rivers are currently threatened by humanity. The dams that prevent environments from flourishing, the pollution that runs so rampant in most corners of the world, and the overallocation of water that means some of our greatest rivers never reach the sea paint a bleak picture. While I do believe our species' recent influence on rivers has been negative, I don't think it has to be that way. So I decided to look at the positive intersections in between our own populational epicenters and rivers to explore how we as humans could build a better relationship with the natural world. Here's my thesis. In an increasingly urban society, we can use rivers to connect ourselves to the natural world through river recreation, an emphasis on rivers in education, and acknowledging rivers' role in identity development. My past suggested that I would confirm the identity piece, which I feel that I did, but I also confirmed that education and recreation were important parts of what rivers mean to us. Now, while I would love to keep talking about my independent trimester thesis, my research phase, my findings, and of course my childhood, I do have a story to tell you all. This is a story about how it all came together in the real world. It's a story beyond what I'd found after dedicated research, a story that took me beyond my background, beyond my backyard, a story that brought me here, now. Let's begin exactly 50 days ago. 50 days ago, my dad and I packed up all my stuff and drove from Haley to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I began preparing to float down the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River. I met all the necessary people, did the rigging and prep work that was asked of me, drove to the put-in where I would spend the night before beginning the trip the next morning, helped set up all the boats, and then it was time for my dad to leave. One thing I did not expect from independent trimester was to cry. But my dad has been there for every major river experience my entire life. The first time I got in a raft and floated downriver, the first time I kayaked, whenever I've ran new rivers, he has been there. That night, I wrote this in my journal. As I stood amid the chaos of the ramp, watching my dad drive off, something felt wrong. I think it was because I associate rivers with family and with home, and at that moment I realized the two were separated. I didn't really know what to think about that, but it was eventually overcome by anticipation to get on the river. Grand Canyon is a huge deal in the river world, and I knew that I was in for something very special. Between the absence of my family and the presence of perhaps one of the greatest rivers in the world, I didn't get much sleep that night. The next day, after some frenzied last-minute work, I finally got to put on Grand Canyon. I spent that entire first day in this state of awe and shock and bliss that I was physically able to exist in this place. The past months of paperwork to plan and get the project approved melted away. All the phone calls I made, the emails I'd sent, the people I'd talked to about my project dissolved into this state of bliss, this pure state of shock and natural beauty. Sure, in the past months I had maybe doubted myself, but then, I knew I was doing something right. Looking at the marbled canyon walls, the lazy green river, down the canyon at the earth that had been torn apart, the river slicing like a scalpel into the earth's crust, seeing this beauty mirrored on the calm water, my heart soared on condor wings. Even though I had written a number of academically minded goals for this project, I think that profound sense of place and natural beauty was what I really wanted. How could I not? The Sage School's mission includes fostering community responsibility, sense of self, and sense of place, all three of which are more important to me on the river. Rivers allow me to be a valuable person to have along, to be who I am, and are always a place that I want to be. In this case especially, in Grand Canyon, I was bombarded by pure experiential shrapnel that shattered my system and shocked my wildest dreams. That feeling of being able to gain new experiences, the feeling of being completely, totally blown away never left. After 16 days on the water, I came to the conclusion that my jaw, in fact, was stuck open. The only words that seemed adequate for this experience were those of my grandma, in a letter she wrote to me to read on the river. Rivers bring me to the threshold of creation, to sublime pleasure and complete peace. I believe there's an invisible thread that reaches out and weaves all participants into a tapestry of unparalleled beauty. With her words ringing in my head, I moved on to the next part of my project. My thesis was about rivers connecting built and natural environments, and with the natural part fully taken care of, I got on a plane to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I spent 5 days at the U.S. National Whitewater Center, a man-made facility in the heart of one of the most populated areas of the country. I happened to be there during a festival called Tuck Fest, which brought in live music, a whole gaggle of different kayaking races and events, and over 60,000 people over 4 days. Literally every single thing about the USNWC was different from my experience in Grand Canyon, with the exception of the fact that both had rivers. And this was another mind-blowing experience for me. In the summers, I live in a town with a population of 17. In the 4 days that I spent at the Whitewater Center, I saw more people than I usually do all summer. Naturally, I went kayaking and was able to talk to a wide variety of people, all of whom agreed that even the man-made river had given them an experience that linked them to the natural world. This both confirmed my thesis and was an interesting tie back to human ecology, the Sage School's core curriculum, which of course incorporates both natural and built environments. In my research, I had read about the personal value of rivers. I learned that running whitewater and even just being around them can have positive emotional and psychological benefits such as increased feelings of well-being and alertness, which I witnessed on a daily basis at the Whitewater Center. Everyone I met on the water was happy and credited the river with their general feeling of well-being. While even the people who just came for the music and never got on the water told me that they were more positive and had a better experience around the water. I myself felt the same way, and even though I was way out of my element in a man-made channel with thousands of people watching, I felt like I belonged, which deep down from this place, I don't think I expected. So at the end of all this, I returned home with a new meaning behind the familiar word, river. I expanded my knowledge of what I thought possible, I broadened my horizons of what rivers can bring to my own experience, and I was constantly happy to be doing something that I love. I have a video to show today with some moments from my adventures. In this video, I tried to use the medium of river to weave together the two totally different places I saw in Grand Canyon in North Carolina. You will see some of my personal favorite pictures, as well as some of the experiences that I found so special. If you look in the periphery of the video, you'll see a variety of different things that were important to me during I-Tri, such as the massive walls of Grand Canyon and the hustle and bustle of the Whitewater Center.
I feel the pain that she covers with a big smile. I wanna help like if I was a guardian angel, but I don't come from heaven. I see her light in the middle of the riffraff. I feel the pain that she covers with a big smile. I wanna help like if I was a guardian angel, but I don't come from heaven. Come from heaven. Don't come from heaven. Come from heaven. Oh. New in town, the town of the misery, looking for a new opportunity. Easy come, easy go, so it's gotta be the beginning of the life that she's gotta live. New in town, the town of the misery, looking for a new opportunity. Easy come, easy go, so it's gotta be the beginning of the life that she's gotta live. I see her light in the middle of the riffraff. I feel the pain that she covers with a big smile. I wanna help like if I was a guardian angel, but I don't come from heaven. I see her light in the middle of the riffraff. I feel the pain that she covers with a big smile. I wanna help like if I was a guardian angel, but I don't come from heaven. Come from heaven.
So if you ask me right now what made this project great, I might get lost in what to say. But honestly, even though it sounds cheesy, it was the rivers themselves. The Grand Canyon trip that had a lasting effect on my very life was only made possible by amazing people who I had met on rivers, and who loved rivers as well and were willing to share something special with me. When I went to North Carolina, I stayed with a friend who I got to know in my earliest days of kayaking, nearly 7 years ago. Even though he lives across the country and I hadn't seen him in a while, I know and trust him, and he was totally willing to open his doors and the doors of the Whitewater Center to me. The last time I had kayaked with him was when I was just a little kid who wanted to go kayaking nearly 6 years ago. Now, 6 years later, on the other side of the country, I came back into his life as a slightly bigger kid who still wanted to go kayaking. I was led on this journey by my own passion, but I really couldn't have asked for better people to journey with. Now I'm moving on, and even though I'm really excited for a change of scenery and attending St. Lawrence University next year, I'm pretty sure that there will be one thing similar about my life. At this point, do I even have to tell you what it is? So in the end, I think the most important thing about my independent trimester was that it pushed me to the limits of my own comprehension and nudged me into my future. But the entire time, I still felt like I was at home. Thank you. Are there any questions? Maria? Or no, Heather?
Congratulations. It's a great speech. And do you think that you will, in bringing together your river community, continue to seek opportunities to go back into Grand Canyon?
Absolutely. If anybody ever tells you anything about the Grand Canyon, they're underselling it. That was just, I never felt so just shocked by the beauty of a place in my entire life. I would love to return there. Yes, Maggie?
I wonder this when I'm out in beautiful places recreating. Is there something that we miss by focusing so much on our own experience? Like, we're out there recreating, it's about what we're doing. But is there a connection that we're missing out on, do you think?
That's a really good question. Maggie asked if there was a connection that we miss when we're recreating outdoors. And I think the main thing that people miss out on is basically an authentic experience when people try and bring phones and social media into the outdoors. I think I kind of interacted on the Grand Canyon with people who were completely disconnected and people who were really trying to be connected. And honestly, I think that just like having your own authentic experience and taking in as much as you can, we won't miss anything really important. Yes, Nancy.
Yeah. That was very well, very good words, I should say. But I want to ask a question. In your journey from very wild places and your childhood growing up on two rivers at different seasons, what are your thoughts about the demands of like increasing demands for recreational experiences versus the increasing need for ecological wildland preservation and the role of river systems being restored to the natural environment? How do you see those two playing together?
That's a great question. I think there is a right and wrong way to recreate, and I believe that humans can enjoy natural experiences without having a negative effect. However, I think basically the popularization of recreation allows for a lot more kind of detrimental things, especially on rivers. You know, like the more rivers get opened up to more people and the easier they become to access, I think it generally is harder to keep them nice and pristine and what everybody wants to come see. So I do think we have to limit our impact fundamentally on rivers and just pay attention and care. Yes, Julie.
I'm not sure if it's even still an active project, but fairly recently there was this proposal on the Bigwood River to add a wave system, a man-made structure to draw recreation. Do you have any? Did that come across in your research, or do you have any opinions on that? Or?
Yeah, I heard about that a little bit. I personally love whitewater parks. There's one in Cascade that has worked really well. It brings a ton more people into the community, generates economic revenue, and this whole sense of community engagement. And so I think that would be a very positive thing to add to the community. Yeah, that's my experience with it. Yes, Emma?
I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your time in North Carolina. You talked about how kind of that like synthetic river was still able to create similar feelings to a wild and scenic river. What do you think, how do you think they created that experience? And do you think, I mean, we can't send 9 billion people down the Grand Canyon, but do you think that kind of man-made rivers would be a way to, like, a first step in to inspiring people to care about rivers and by extension the ecosystems?
Yes, I absolutely think that man-made system and the human-created and curated outdoor experience helps people to get engaged with the natural world. I met a ton of people there who basically had, because it was in Charlotte, were able to actually access a river, and which they said, like, yeah, I love kayaking, but I can't really get out. Like, it's hard for me to drive. So I think that experience absolutely lets people realize that the natural world is something amazing and great. And to kind of answer the other part of your question, I think that even though it was a man-made channel, there's something really wild and free and like kind of untamable about rivers. So paddling in it and seeing it, the shores felt really weird. It was so odd to paddle through this swath of people, but it did feel like a similar, like a river experience like I've kind of always known. And so I think whitewater centers and man-made river courses would have a really positive effect on people and get people more engaged with the natural world. Yes, Ethan?
Earlier in your presentation, you were talking about how that the man-made river and the Grand Canyon River both tie together in two very different aspects. And I was wondering also how like different rivers, like you said they were similar, but I also wonder how like their differences impact and shape your experience on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ethan was asking about the similarities and differences in between North Carolina and Grand Canyon. And yeah, when I said literally every single thing was different, literally every single thing was different. It was so odd for me. But I think the thing that changed the most that I noticed was in the people around it. I had a very similar experience, at least in the specific element of rafting or kayaking, but I think the people I met and the people that I was able to interact with were very different, and I think that connected me to more people's stories and had a bigger impact on what I found, if that answers your question. All right, thank you.